Ladies and gentlemen, dudes and dudettes, boys and girls, whoever is watching this, welcome back to a new episode of the DudeCast. As always, I am your loyal host, and this is my loyal co-host, Philip the Office Plant, who's significantly more popular than me. As you know, this is the podcast brought to you by the Patch Dudes, also known as the podcast that literally nobody asked for, with an exception that two people did ask for this podcast. So here we go. New episode dedicated to nothing but sales and sales only. And since we're talking about sales in the industry, specifically in our company, who's better to talk to us than our very own head of sales, the guy that makes this machine turn around, Senor Kal Fadl. Kal, welcome to the podcast, my friend.
Or thanks for the gracious intro. Pleasure to be a part of the DudeCast. By the way, I was one of those two people, so thanks for keeping it going. Didn't think I'd make an appearance this soon, but a pleasure to be here.
You see, kids, don't stop dreaming and believing, and you can be on the podcast too.
Hi, Mom.
There you go. But Kal, obviously, I know you very well. We work very closely. We've known each other for years. But why don't you tell the people that might not know who you are a bit of your history, how you got into the industry, how we came about to being a part of this brand, and everything that people need to know about Senor Kal.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, way back in the day, I'd say maybe 15 years ago, I started a small painting company while I was, in university. So throughout university and actually throughout high school, I was a professional painter, grew into a small painting company. That's where I had intersected with yourself, with Or, and who also had a small painting company. And then that sort of grew, and I joined a pretty large company called Wow One Day Painting, which is a sister company to 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They're actually one of the largest growing
companies. Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, so O2E Brands, it's all under the same umbrella of companies, and 1-800-GOT-JUNK is sort of the first company. Wow One Day the second, and then they have another company as well. So yeah, I was with them for over 8 years. Started at the humble position of territory manager, sort of worked my way up, regional district, and then head of sales. So had a little bit of success there in terms of sales, and had a lot of fun coaching and managing sales, and also still contributing to the sales team myself. And then I joined Patch Dudes just about a year ago. So here we are.
that's awesome. Yeah, we're very lucky to have you. And it's hard to find good salespeople, especially people that know how to manage and and lead a team. In terms of management, what kind of experience did you have coming into Patches? I think you overran a team of salespeople, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, pre-COVID, it reached up to about 7 or 8 salespeople. Post-COVID, obviously, we kind of downsized a little bit. It was down to about 4 or 5 salespeople, and then we kind of ramped up again. So yeah, had a fair share of managing. Did a lot of one-on-one, and then also sort of, the monthly meetings. Sort of biweekly quick check-ins, and just kept everyone, it was a really good experience. It was a learning experience for me as well. Although I was, sort of coaching, I was also learning myself, and we had to keep adapting as well. So
Well,
that was really interesting.
I always say the best way to learn is to teach. That's kind of what we do in this podcast too, to try to, on the selfish way, to learn more about ourselves by teaching other people. I mean, I obviously know your experience very well, and I know for a fact that you've probably went on north of 1,000 sales calls. I think that's in the low end, just in the painting industry. I know if already in the full year you've been with Patch Dudes, you've cranked out over 1,000 quotes already. So it's safe to say that you've seen almost everything that there is to see in sales in the home improvement industry.
Yeah, just when I think I do, I see something else. But yeah, it's I've
Yeah,
probably been,
that's a beauty.
if you look, yeah, like I've been into every sort of pocket and every crevice, I'd say, in the GTA. If you live in a building, I've probably been in it. If you're in a sort of dense residential area, I've definitely been in your area at some points. Yeah.
Quickly before we jump into a bit more sales specific questions, how was do you think every good salesperson can become a sales manager?
The answer is no. I think there's a huge distinction between managing people and just being a good salesperson. Um, you know, without diving too much into it, I would say, you know, a lot of salespeople, it's a very autonomous role. So you're in the car by yourself, you're driving around the city, you are meeting with clients, so there is that interaction. But most of the time, you're sort of in your own bubble, and you come and report back to your sales manager or what have you. So you don't get much of that exposure to other people in regards to a coaching or um, you know doing an overview with someone in regards to their performance. So it's a very autonomous job. So just because you're really good at sales doesn't mean that you can transfer that into soft skills enough to sort of manage other people. It sort of takes it to another level. And I think, like I said, it's a constant. We were talking about like it's a constant learning thing. It took me a while as well to sort of, go from just a salesperson to someone that was managing. At that time, we're actually were once my peers, right? That was a bit of an interesting sort of dynamic there.
That's actually a really interesting point that you touched. I know we didn't plan on talking about this, but I find that fascinating. How did those relationship people that used to be your peer, how did they take into you becoming a sales manager position and, in more of a coaching role? Was there a lot of pushback or you're able to navigate that?
Yeah, I think it was something that I had to keep, working on. Ultimately speaking, like it was very positively accepted by, pretty much all the guys. We were all really good friends. We were all doing our routes. Everyone had their own territory, so to speak, and we would get together once in a while. So we're always very tight knit. I'm still very close to a lot of those people. And what I wanted to do is, when I went into that management role, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't doing it in a way that would sort of rub people the wrong way, and that I could act as sort of a support system rather than someone that would just sort of look at it from a bird's eye view and come down with authority. But then I also wanted to be results oriented. It was a fine balance, and that's why I say, like, I don't think it could just be any salesperson that could just wake up and say, hey, I want to be a manager tomorrow. There was this constant sort of me tweaking my style, not my sales style, but my management style to better suit and better help other people. Some guys, I had to do situational leadership courses, where I had to figure out, okay, who are the people that need, to just have a delegation. They're already good at what they do. You just got to delegate. Who are the people that need coaching? Those people are going to require a little bit more attention, and so on and so forth. So I had to study a little bit more about how to manage people, um, to then bring that into the real world and become a better manager.
I love that. Yeah, it's never end learning, man. You never stop learning. For anyone that's listening that actually needs to take that step of from being just whether you're a business owner that you hired your first salesperson or you're a sales manager to hire two more people for the first time you have people underneath you. There's a really good book that somebody recommended to me when really before Cal came aboard and I had to start knowing how to work with him. It's called First Time Sales Manager. It's a fantastic book. I can't remember who's the author, but if you type it on Amazon, very highly recommend reading it. I'm not sure if you read it, Cal, but I'm sure you would enjoy it too. But it
I did
talked a
not
lot about,
know.
uh, yeah, I mean, it essentially you summarized it. It talks a lot about the need to understand your personalities of different people that work for you, and how to educate and empower everybody to bring everybody up, and not just focusing on the high performers and neglecting the low performers. So I love that. I love that. Now that we established that you know what you're talking about with your credentials, I've also kind of been in love with sales ever since I started. I've started painting it when I was 14. I met Cal when I was about 18, and really quick, I realized that this is a sales business. If you don't know how to sell, you don't have a business. Some people can argue that marketing is the most important part of a business, and without marketing, there's no sale. Today, we're going to focus on sales. So I think it's important that we define what sales is, what we talk about when we say sales. Um, so when I say sales to you, Cal, how do you define that?
Sales to me. I think so. Before I get to sales to me, I would say that sales in general, um, I know sometimes it has a negative connotation to it. So a lot of people sort of associate sales as this sort of like, I have to be careful. I got to watch myself. Who's actually coming to my house? Am I going to trust that person? So, when I take that sort of macro perspective, from my perspective, sales to me, it's no surprise. Here it is, drum rolls. It's literally customer relationship management, which is CRM, and not the CRM that, you pay, for, and, that organizes your client list. I'm talking about real customer
Sponsored by
relationship.
Jobber, by the way. Go ahead.
That's and it's actually like real interactive customer relationship management. So what you're doing is you actually have an opportunity to identify someone's needs. Oftentimes when someone's calling you, they have an issue. There's a problem. You're there to help solve it. So you're there to identify that issue, you're there to validate that issue, and you're there to be a good listener. So sales is taking someone's problem and coming up with a creative solution that is advantageous for everybody, and trying to package that together in a really nice way, and basically just making people's lives a little bit easier in that service or product that you're selling, so to
Yeah,
speak.
I love that. I love that focus, and I've been preaching that as well since I think that's one of the reasons why you did decide to join us. It's focusing on the customer. That's the key of it. I think if I have to really boil it down, um, people buy from those they know, like, and trust. So it's our job as salespeople to get to know the people, for people to get to know us, for us to get to know our customers, to establish a relationship so we like each other, and then to get to a point that we're the trade authority that they trust us. And it sounds easy, no, like, and trust, but it's a very, very loaded sentence, and each one of those three words have so many different things that go into it. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good definition of sales to go off. And now I think now that we know what sales is, and we established that you've been around for so many, you ran thousands of appointments. What are some of the most common things that you see salespeople in the home improvement industry do wrong?
Do wrong. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a very good question. Wow, I've waited years to rant about this. No, 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 no. And if you manage
Put
people
them
that
all
way,
on blast, my friend. Put them
it's
all on
it's not
blast.
going to work. No, let's you know what? Like, honestly speaking, I've seen a lot of issues. I've seen a lot of things, and I think over time, when you work in customer service or if you work in sales, you as a client, in your experience, whether you're at a restaurant or you're just getting something from somewhere, and you have set these standards for so long, you start to recognize these things. So you start to pick up on these things. So unfortunately, I'm a lot more critical today than I'd like to be. But a lot of the things that I'd say is, number one, over talking, coming in with a pre-planned, predetermined, this is exactly what I want to sell. You come off as a snake oil salesman or woman, and it's just very bad because people can sort of read that. And I want to say that the number one thing is to just be authentic. Don't overtalk. Um, Listen, shut up and listen. Kiss, they say, like, keep it simple, stupid. Like, just be quiet and listen to what people have to say, because I've heard a lot of people, for example, feature dump, and they say, well, our product, our service comes with a 5-year warranty, but that person's selling their home in a month. Like, they don't care about the 5-year warranty. Perhaps you could have talked to them about how that warranty was transferable had you listened, right? So if you come in and you say, hey, listen, like, we got this 5-year warranty, they're gonna be like, but we talked on the phone already. Hopefully you've had a free call. We'll talk about that later. If you spoke to them on the phone, or you see on the notes that they said they're moving, and then you bring up something that's actually completely against their motives or their plans, then it shows that you are just not actively listening. So not active listening. What you shouldn't do is don't overtalk, and what you should do is actively listen. So that I would say is like number one. I've seen a lot of people just go off on tangents. Number two, not being authentic. Being over the top. I've actually seen a lot of coaches that coach on sales, and honestly, it's very cringy. It's like,
Seems like
if
everybody and their daughter is a sales coach now, eh?
yeah, like, come into the house, and make sure when you come into the house, you get down on your knees and you pet the dog and you hold the baby. Let me tell you, if someone held my two-year-old daughter, like, I don't know how I'd feel about that, honestly
Get the
speaking, right?
baseball
And then
bat.
again, we're trying to keep it positive, right? But like, there's a lot of that, and I've seen a lot of, bad coaching on stuff like that. Be yourself. Me personally, my energy is sort of very relaxed, very calm. I try to come in and I try to transfer confidence. I am very knowledgeable at what I do. Let's say, whether it was paint or drywall, you want to be very knowledgeable. You want to transfer that confidence, but you want to be authentic to yourself, because the client will sort of read off if you are being over the top, or if you're being pretentious, or if you're trying to take interest in something that they have hung up on the wall, but you don't know anything about, Tiger Woods and, the Masters, and you try to bring that up and they try to talk to you about Rory or whatever, and you're just like, who's Rory? Like, like it's the worst situation that you could put yourself in. So just be yourself. So that would be the second one. And yeah, third, I think is just very simple stuff, punctuality, coming up, in
Yeah.
uniform. Especially in the painting world, I'd see a lot of guys, God bless them, they're working hard. They come fresh off the job site. They've got paint on their hands, paint on their white pants. They got like a tool on the back, and they, they're sort of a little bit late. They look like they're sort of in between something. They're rushing the estimate. Just not a good way to have a consultation. So just show up, in some sort of respectable uniform, on time. First impressions matter a lot.
I mean, those are all fantastic examples, and I agree with you completely. People definitely talk way, way, way too much, and so most of the time, I'm sure you heard it, but when I was a kid, every time I met or my parents had a friend that could talk your ear off for hours, they would say, "Oh, he should go into sales. He can talk a lot." I
Yeah,
actually think that the best salespeople that I met are the best listeners. They're the ones that know how to ask provoking questions to get the customer talking. Because I don't know about you, I like to keep it about 85% customer talking, 15% me talking. If you listen close enough, the customer, and you ask the right questions, the customer will tell you all the answers you need to hear in order for them to sell themselves on you. So definitely
absolutely.
don't talk too much. Listen. But I do want to touch on another point that I think I see a lot of mistake. I see more business owner friends of mine making that mistake, especially painters. We're in the drywall industry. Your background is in painting. My background is also in painting and drywall. Um, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see people make in sales is that, one, they treat it as a secondary thing in the business and not probably one of the most important aspects of the business. And B, they don't train on sales. There's no ongoing training. Um, let's talk about ongoing training. What do you think about that? You think that something
I
is, you
love
think
that.
sales is a skills that can be replenished and improved as, like, just like bodybuilding where you train every
Yeah,
day, or is it something that
you know,
you're good and you're born with it?
yeah, no, no, absolutely. I mean, just further to my earlier point about, like, continuing to learn. I was just going to pull out that book that you just got me by Alex Hormozy. About, money models, and there's so many things that I'm grateful for, and I think professional development is very important. It's one of those things that are like, it's a must. You, as a manager, as a salesperson, as an owner, as a marketing, like, everyone has to constantly continue to professionally develop themselves. And it's just knowledge enrichment, just constantly coming up with new ideas. What we like to do, even like, yeah, me and you, like, we like to, read something and it's like, okay, what was your interpretation, or how do you think we can apply this to the business? What better way to brainstorm than to take, something that was a proven concept, you know, oftentimes with a, proven, like, someone that has a proven track record, a good sales leader, someone that's had a lot of success, so they bring it in a very abstract or very general form. How can we take that and we can implement it into an actual, tangible system here, right? So we're constantly doing that. So yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely, definitely continue to sharpen your skills, and and bring it with you.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I don't think it's solely the responsibility of the sales manager to ensure that there's training for his guys. I think the best salespeople sales representatives that I've met in this industry are guys that are sponges, and they go out of their way and they spend, they're obsessed with learning and getting better. Um, guys like you, guys like me, there's a lot of other guys that I know are exactly like that. But also, it's kind of like professional sports. And today we have so many AI features, and we can record calls and record sales appointments. You can literally rewatch your appointments or your conversations, almost like game film where NBA players watch. So I do think that continuing education in sales is probably the most important thing for a newer salesperson and an existing one, to continue educating themselves. And I mean, you mentioned Alex or Mosey. There's like 10 different people that give incredible amount of free content out there, like Alex Hormozy, like Daniel G. There's, you know, what's his name? Elliot Army. I forgot his first name, but um, there's so many good people. Andy Elliott, so many good people that put in their content away on YouTube for free. That it's almost, you're doing your clients and your business a disservice by not continuing to educate yourself all the time about sales.
Absolutely. Sales, like information is so accessible these days, like audiobooks. If you don't like reading, like pick up an audiobook. It's just
Even
really good.
podcasts like this.
Like Tommy Mello, like, so much
Mm-hmm.
good stuff. You know what I mean? Like in all of his success with A1 garage doors, like just like real life examples about how he was able to sort of systematize his business. But again, yeah, there's a lot of, you got to love what you do. I think that's what's really important about sales. If we're talking on a broader sense, if you don't love what you do, you just shouldn't do it. If you are in the roofing business and you are a salesperson and you find yourself all of a sudden in a roofing business and you don't enjoy one aspect of that business, just one aspect at least, if you're in a roofing company and you don't like flying drones over homes, you know what I mean? Something has to pull you in.
Yeah.
You gotta wake
Yeah.
up one day and say, you know what, I love what I do. But in a real true sense, like jokes aside, you gotta actually believe in it. If you don't believe in it, again, it's might not be the right industry. I'm not saying that sales might not be for you, but you might not be in the right industry. So probably continue to research and educate yourself to find something that maybe you would like.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned Tommy Mello is one of the people that I follow pretty closely, one of the inspirations for the podcast. So love that you brought him up. One thing that kind of he talks about, or his philosophy, is I'm gonna sell as if this was my mother's house. Treat everybody like it's your mother. And what would you do? Obviously, um, I'm a big believer in kind of the new school thought of sales, which is more value based, educational based. We'll call it sales, quote unquote, versus the old school kind of used car salesperson, snake oil skin, whatever you call it.
Make
Um,
oil sales. Yeah.
Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about that, about what we do here kind of at Patch Dudes, where we empower that method of more focusing on the value that we add, the value that we bring, rather than what a lot of other people would just talk their ears off, drop the prices with discounts, high pressure sales. I think as an industry, we all need to shift to l- completely eliminate high pressure sales. There's too many crooks out there that are giving us a bad name. At the end of the day, at least people of our generation, we don't want to be sold to. We want to buy. We want to make an educated buying decision. And it's your job and my job as a sales representatives or salespeople to educate our potential clients, give them all the options, and then let them make an educated buying decision. And hopefully our brand and our product is the one that gets it. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably the best question that you could have asked on this session. All of the years of
I am
frustration
pretty
of trying.
freaking incredibly smart. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
And humble
to
and sexy.
toot your horn a bit. I wish we had a horn. But no, honestly, wow. Like, that's the question of the whole DudeCast pod. Like that, this is it right here. Um, the reason why this hits home is because for many, many years, you can tell people stupid things like, you wouldn't go cheap on a tattoo, so why would you go cheap on your house? But then that sounds really dumb. But it's true, right? But like at the same time, it's like there are companies that are on the race to the bottom, and they're not going to be around. So they want to just undercut other people. They want to show up whenever they want to show up because, hey, they gave you a deal. We're cheap. If we want to come at 5 p.m., we're going to come at 5 p.m. If I want to wear a non-branded shirt and come with a rusty truck, it's all good. You got a deal. No worries. My oil's going to leak on your driveway. No problem. We gave you a deal. You know, at Patch Dudes, if we were just talking about it, and I don't really mean to sound this like to make this sound like it's an infomercial or anything like that, but the cycle, like the client cycle, whether it's from reaching out to us on Instagram or Facebook or on our website, they're going to get fast responses. We try to turn over estimates same day. Obviously, if it's an on-site estimate, we try to get there like the next day or as fast as we possibly can. So that customer is going to get their. It's sort of like a hand-holding experience. So by the time she talks to Riley, who's our manager of customer success, and then they talk to me, I always try to get on the phone with them, or whoever it may be. Right? That's a very tight and systematized process where we want to make sure that they're not left stranded. There's no radio silence. And then, we come there, we give them a nice consultative approach, for our popcorn ceiling removals, for example. You talked about value, and listening to clients, right? So if you're a contractor, we have a good package. We also have a better package. We have a best package, and there's a variance in the offerings for those packages, you know. So,
Yeah, I think if
also,
you're I'll butt in there for 1 second. I think that packages that you're talking about, I think it's crucial to give kind of like a menu approach to whatever you're selling because, if you're not giving options to your clients, you're giving them an ultimatum. People
ultimatum.
don't want ultimatums. Yeah, as you were.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, exactly. Right. So again, like we get contractors, they're like, hey, I just want to do the removal. I just want to prime. Great. Good package. Awesome. I want someone that's going to take everything off my hands and paint it. Okay, great. We can do the better package. I want professional cleaning services. Great. We can do the best package. It's whatever you want. So it's an a la carte menu. So again, who's doing that? I don't know anyone really that's doing that. And then obviously our technicians show up on site branded in uniform in the wrap trucks, clean. We take a lot of care to protect homes. We put plastic all over, the countertops and cover all the furniture, paper down corner to corner, all the floors. Obviously just the next level of care just before we even start. And then the technician's obviously going to knock it out of the park. We do a really good job and we give you a warranty. What's interesting to me is what's happened, and this is the difference between a company that's on the race to the bottom and the race sort of to the top, is that we're currently the highest reviewed drywall company in the GTA, and ChatGPT is actually recommending us as the number one drywall company in the GTA without us even having to do anything. Like we don't interact directly with ChatGPT. It's just taking our online presence, our reviews, and wow, like what an honor to be a part of that. You know what I mean? It's part of the reason why I joined. I saw the videos. Obviously, I've known you for many years, but I was really impressed. And I took
Definitely
Patch
makes the
Dudes.
sales easier.
Yeah, there was a job that I knew about, and I referred you guys, and you guys not, Patch. Now it's you guys. I could say us, Patch Dudes, knocked it out of the park. And so that was me trying it out, just making sure that everything is as good as it seems. Um,
And
so just on all
that
fronts.
relates directly, sorry to cut you off, but that relates directly to what I kind of started in the beginning of the podcast, that marketing and sales, it's kind of like one big umbrella. When they work hand in hand, it's a beautiful thing. That know, like, and trust factor, you're knocking out the know and trust out of, before you even meet them. So I've been listening to what you're saying, and it really sounds like the sales cycle starts way before you actually step foot in your client's home to present them with a quote. Does that sound
Absolutely.
right to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it starts from the beginning. Whenever we have large achievements, or we say, "Oh, we broke a record this month," which is awesome, and it's happened. A lot of times I say like it's we, it's a joint effort. Shout out to Riley, our customer success manager. She's always on it. She's tagging me multiple times a day on things that require really quick attention, right? So the whole sales cycle starts very early on, and then that customer is just getting nurtured. And like I said, it's we're listening, and we're just identifying, and then we're validating, we're getting to that, and we're trying to help them with that problem as soon as possible. So yes,
No, that's awesome.
It's beyond just a guy with a, patch dude's shirt and a golf shirt that shows up on time. It's way more than that.
I do want to go back to this value based approach of selling, because some people will watch us and they'll say, oh, you guys spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a brand and on vehicles that are wrapped and on merchandise, blah, blah, blah. I'm just a guy and I got two helpers and I need to get better at sales. I can't do what you do. And I want to address that, because that's a flawed approach of looking at it. You don't need the fancy whistles and bells. You don't need to go in there and have a crazy system that sends videos and text messages and whatnot. You can do value based sales fairly simple. It's as simple as starting by personalized text messages confirming your appointments, calling the clients when you actually said you're going to call, showing up when you actually said you're going to show up. And then when you show up to the site, I see this with painters a lot. They spend like 95% of the time like diarrheaing, throwing up technical terms on the clients instead of listening. So you can do this value-based approach by listening to the customers, talking maybe 5% of the time, listening 95% of the time. I think that the sales approach, especially in painting and drywall, should be about 5% technical, 95% just building that relationship, that rapport between the client and the sales representative. But I think it's also very important to mention that when you're trying to build rapport, like you said, don't go out of your way to pet the dog if you're allergic to dogs. You don't know nothing about dogs. Don't mention
Yeah,
anything about the maple leaves on the wall if you've never watched a hockey game in your life, like me until last
that's
night.
right.
Yeah. And it needs
Yeah.
to be an organic thing. And I actually think that the tradesperson that's dabbling in sales because he has to, otherwise he doesn't have work. I think they actually have almost like an advantage on bigger companies, because they can say, oh, when you call the patch dudes, you'll never see Or that you see on the videos, you know, but when you hire me, you call me, I'm the one that's showing up and I'll do the job properly. So like there's different ways you can position your company. Doesn't matter how big or small you are, based on prevailing or showing the customers what specific value you bring to the table compared to the other people. And if that value that you are showing the customer is perceived by the customer as higher than what the cost of your product is, you have a sale. And if you don't, then you have this gap to bridge over here between the value that you bring and your price, the value that the client perceives, and you have to bridge that gap. And that is sales. That is, in essence, that is sales. How can you bridge the gap between your value and your price and the value that your customers perceive that you bring to the table? And a lot of people bridge that gap by just discounting. I don't know about you. I
Mhm.
think discounting is the worst way. There's a lot of better ways to bridge that gap, but that's my opinion of sales.
Yeah, wow. Like very loaded question. And honestly, I feel like you've answered it. A lot of obviously your sales knowledge and your sales experience, coming to the surface there, which is awesome. I think absolutely. Like, how do you show someone value when someone can just undercut you? They're gonna just tell them all these technical things, and hey, I could do this, and then these guys, they're just gonna charge you way more than us. I'm not here to knock anyone. Everyone, there's a big market, and everyone has a little bit of market share. But I'll say this. I think that whenever I'm referring to sales, you said something earlier about like, a reference to you want to be the salesperson that your mother would open the door to. I've always believed in that actually, just prior to any readings or anything, actually. I just always felt like, who would I want to be? Like, who would I want to show up at my mom's door if I was at work or away or, whatever it may be, this vulnerable sort of elderly woman that doesn't, can't really, uh, you know, protect herself from sort of some, shady stuff for contractors. And we're hearing stories. We talked about a story earlier this morning, unfortunately, but we're hearing stories like that all the time. So I think about, okay, how can I display value the same way that I buy services or products myself? So what do I look for? If that guy comes there and he says, "Hey, look, I can do it," and whatever, back it up. Where's your reviews? Where's your WSIB? Where's your commercial insurance? You don't have those documents. You don't have the reviews. okay, so how do I know that you're just not going to just take my deposit and run with it? So reviews today is actually almost like a commodity. If you don't have reviews, it's almost like you have a really bad credit score. So it's
What's
like
your social proof?
you
Yeah.
yeah, you might be able to get a job, but it's going to be really hard. You know, you might be able to get, a client or whatever. It's not going to be the same. And then and again, that's the race to the bottom. So, you might think that you're actually winning that way because you're undercutting your competitors. But guess what? By the time, if you're running that type of business, chances are you're not tracking your back end. So you're not even looking at your overhead, and perhaps you're actually charging so low that you're not realizing that you're actually losing money, which happens to a lot of small time. I hate to call it small time, but maybe I'll say like smaller contractors or contractors that are just starting out that are just entering the sales world because they don't know how to track gross profits, or they don't realize that $400 in gas means that they can't do that job for 500 bucks. They're not doing the math. They're just looking at it as like a job to job basis. Yeah, if you're looking for professionalism these days, the company better have a lot of really good reviews. They better be insured. They better have, worker safety insurance as well, liability insurance. You can't even enter a lot of these commercial jobs, for example, commercial buildings, even condos now that are really strict without having just the bare basics, like just WSIB and commercial insurance, which a lot of these smaller guys don't have. So what do I tell clients? I tell them something really simple, and I tell them generally the price reflects on the quality of the work. And if you're looking for someone that's going to show up on time with really good communication and knock this out of the park the first time, so that you don't have to hire us after them to fix up their work, then you probably want to just do this deal right now. And then obviously we can get into rebuttals and we can talk about, if they have an issue with something, what can we do to help them, or how can we make this align with their budget, and that's a whole other a lane, rebuttals, and how can we help them diffuse the
Man,
concerns
we can
that
do
that
an
they
entire podcast on rebuttal.
yeah that they think that, these concerns that they have, they're genuine concerns, but a lot of the times, they're clouded by something. So a lot of the times it's actually concerns that they think they have, uh, and when you surface them, obviously that's that. So yeah, I think you gotta understand you're not competing with that guy. If you actually want to be a respectable business that's scalable, I wrote it up here. You got to nail it to scale it. You got to do a really good job, and you're not on the race to the bottom. You're trying to be the best.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. I mean, I think rebuttals is probably one of my favorite things to do. I know you say it all the time that I'm a bit too risky with my rebuttals sometimes, but that's the luxury of being the business owner, so I can
Yeah, you're the owner.
I
You
can
can
do
you can
that.
say whatever you want. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know what? It's
But it's
good. I think it's good to be bold, because being bold is honest too, right? So, like I said, as long as you're being yourself, I don't think you can go wrong.
You gotta look. I look at sales almost like as a game. It's a game that we're playing with an unknown, to a lot of variables, and sometimes you got to be bold, because I think the hardest part about sales, especially in home improvement, is uncovering the true objection of your actual customers. Because most of the time, when people tell us, "Oh, it's too expensive," it's not too expensive. It's just we haven't portrayed enough value, or they still have something they're scared of asking, or scared of happening potentially to them, that but they're masking that fear by saying the easy thing, which is too expensive, get out of my house. So I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole over rebuttals, but I will leave our listeners with
Maybe
this
another
little gold
time.
nugget. Yeah, my all-time favorite, when somebody tells me um this is this is too expensive. You're charging me too much. Can you give me a discount? Every time somebody asks me for a discount, or if I can price match it, my response is always, well, if I give you a discount, it just means I tried to overcharge you to begin with. And that wouldn't be right, would it? Uh, so you'll be surprised how many people kind of laugh at it. And then that's a great opener to saying, but instead of me giving you a discount, why do you think it's too expensive? Or what are we being compared to? Again, trying to uncover that true objection. I think that is probably the hardest part as a sales representative in the home improvement industry. I think it's an industry, even car salespeople. Most of the time when people tell a car salesperson that's too expensive, it's not too expensive. It just, there's another hidden objection behind it. So yeah, really good point. But bridging that gap between the value and perceived value, I think that's where sales lies. That's a really good salesperson. Like you said, combined with a really good brand and company, that gap will be bridged almost instantaneously, which is what it's been kind of a byproduct of the Patch Dudes brand. It's kind of became to a point that people know, like, and trust us before we even get there. So then what is happening, that people portray the value that we bring to the table when they meet with you way more than the cost most of the time. Obviously not everybody, but that's what it's been going. So definitely I recommend, like you said, Kal, to anybody listening to this, do your best to focus on your reviews, your social media presence, anywhere that you can differentiate yourself or show people, potential clients, your personality and your brand and what you stand for, will definitely give you an edge. Real quick, I know you have actually a sales appointment later on that you need to get to, so I don't want to keep you here for hours, but this is a fascinating conversation to me. So I want to keep going. Just another couple questions, small questions.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, let's focus on the painting company owner that's watching this. I know we have Jobber, we have Company Cam, we have verified leads, we have like a dedicated sales pipeline with AI involved. If you were starting a painting company and you were obviously the sales manager, what would be the SOP, the standard operating procedure for sales that you build from lead coming in to job sold? What would be the steps that you do in the sales cycle?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously with automation, like you said, sort of lead comes in, they hear something back right away. That automation, hopefully it gives you enough information that, then you can immediately or as soon as possible connect them with a live person. So they're now speaking with, for example, customer success manager. That person then gets more information. They're able to sort of understand a little bit more. But I want to say this, and I want to say this delicately. Also pre-qualify, right? Are we the right
Yes.
Are we the right company for that customer? We got to be honest with ourselves. We got to be honest with the customer. So that screener would be great if they can also pre-qualify. So there's a little bit of sales there. Then they can
So what, you
finally
don't want to go
pass.
see anybody that calls?
Don't put me in front of everybody because I don't want to waste everybody's time. Um,
Yes.
but put me in front of the people that we do align with and we can help. If I can't help them, unfortunately, I don't want to just be another cog in the wheel that just gets in their way of them solving their issue. If they need roofing issues,
So
if they have
far we
roofing
have,
issues,
yep.
yeah, yeah, I was gonna say, like, if they have roofing issues, they're not gonna need us, not yet anyway. They're gonna need to fix their roof, and then we can fix up the patches, right? So,
So far we have a sort of a CRM that does automations for immediate contact when a lead comes in to gather all the information. We have a pre-qualifying call or process. What's next?
yeah, then hand over to the salesperson with all of that information. Now the salesperson is so to speak primed, since we're talking about the painting world. And they know exactly what they're talking about. By the time I call Or, I say, "Hi Or, this is Kal from Patch Dudes or from Painter Dudes," and whatever. And basically, I want to say, I know that this is your timeline. I know that this is what you're looking for. I know that this is your issue. Can I meet with you tomorrow at this time? And so we try to set up an on-site. Obviously, there's that. It's called what we call, or I call, a discovery call or a welcome call, and that's again to set the agenda with them about what's happening in the actual consultation. Set the agenda on the actual call before that to let them know, hey, do you have a few minutes? Like, this is exactly what I need, and try to listen and write down. Like, I always just take down notes on my notebook, so just listen and absorb that information so that by the time you show up, you're even better equipped. So that by the time you guys meet, like it's you know it, everything is just already laid out. You already know what you're doing, and there's less
Do
talking
you
and
talk
more.
pricing with the clients on the screening call or the welcome call?
You know what? So we try to avoid that. However, sometimes clients are very eager, so they want to get an idea. If someone is really just being flat out about how much pricing they're looking at, again, that's where the screening comes in, sort of early on, where our customer success manager gives them an idea of what we charge, per square foot, but then they're heavily pushing the on-site because it does vary. And again, we can't show them value if we're just giving them some price points, right? So there's an element of screening for sure. Like we definitely want to screen them. Like if they're saying my budget's $200 right off the bat, I got to talk to them about that, right? If it just doesn't align, again, I don't want to waste their time. So then, yeah, so basically back to the consultation. Yeah, consultation should be you measuring areas, making sure that everyone's aligned on things after all of, obviously building the rapport and building trust and confidence, showing up on time, all of that. But then also doing your little bit of technical aspect. Try to present on site, as best as possible. There are some really, intricate, jobs, really big commercial jobs that you just can't. But if you can, let them know. They're itching to know as well. Price is important, so we can't ignore it. And then, if you leave and let's say they're giving you, some issues or whatever, obviously not to get too granular, let them know what, try to diffuse those issues and try to sort that out. And then you walk away, let's say before you walk away, try to book a meeting from a meeting. So Bam Fam, again, shout out Alex Hermosi. Try to say, hey, listen, can I catch up with you in like 2 days and see how that, and they're like, yeah, for sure. Give me a call. And you step away and then you do your follow-up. So obviously assuming that you've already sent your consultation and your proposal through, you've summarized your consultation and sent your proposal through, do your follow-ups, whether that's a day or 2 days later, whatever you guys discussed. Then yeah,
Hopefully you make the sale.
hopefully you make the sale, technician knocks it out of the park, and then they come back again. So retention, hopefully they
And
come back and
Bob's
they
is
call 2 friends
everybody's
again.
creepy's uncle.
Yeah, Bob is lurking
So
from a tree.
just to
Yeah.
summarize that for all of our loyal listeners, then they made it to this 46-minute mark, which will give you guys this. If you wanted to start a business today, bare minimum sales system you should have is lead intake, CRM / customer success representative. They can take the information and lead information. Someone to pre-qualify the lead. She'll pre-qualify to make sure they actually want, what you're selling. Discovery call with the sales representative once the lead is being pre-qualified to give them more information about the project, more information, build report before you come to the site. Site visit with the lead, ideally to present the quote on the spot, and some sort of an automation for follow-ups, some sort of a mechanism like that. That is kind of like the bare minimum, I think, that both you and I would recommend to somebody starting a business. And there's too many off-the-shelves products, such as Jobber, that we use, that give you all of that solutions in one place. They literally don't sponsor this podcast. I wish they did. I got to talk to them about that. But Jobber is a great option for painters. There's Drip Jobs. I know Paint Scout, whatever it's called. If you're in HVAC or plumbing, ServiceTime is the biggest one. There's Housecold Pro. I mean, there's so many of them. It's almost kind of, yeah, it kind of pisses me off when people don't have a CRM. And, you talked about knowing your numbers for pricing. That's another conversation. But yeah, everything ties together to that. Three small questions before I let you go. First one, sell me this pen. No, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna make you do that. That is a gimmick.
Oh man, I was getting fired up. I was like,
you should buy this because it has Patch Dude's face on it.
Yeah. Yeah, identifying the need. Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, give me. Obviously, you like to read. I like to read. Give me one book recommendation or podcast recommendation that you've enjoyed recently. Specifically, it doesn't have to be specifically for sales, but
could I ask you something first? Because I think I'm going to guess it. Okay, I'm going to guess it.
Okay.
Can you maybe write down the author?
I don't think you're going to guess it.
Okay. I just sold you the pen. You picked it up.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been bamboozled into buying my own pen.
That's it. Identify a need. And there it is.
Now, give me a book or a podcast that you've recently enjoyed, or a long time ago enjoyed, and you think that our listeners should try to check out as well, other than the DudeCast.
Yeah, I would say like Home Service Millionaire by Tom Mello. So I actually listened to that. Yeah, I listened to that whole podcast. Actually, in between my transition between Wow One Day and Patch Dudes, and it was very good, super refreshing, and yeah, I would highly recommend it. I think yeah, a lot of stuff on Alex Hormozy as well. Like I'm always watching his YouTube videos. Yeah, he's got like a whole college of videos that's basically just uploaded on YouTube, and he references them on QR codes on his books. So yeah, grab one of his books off of like Amazon or Audible or whatever. Yeah, just keep yourself informed and do it for you. Don't do it for someone else. Like try to learn, try to bring it in. You can only bring fresh ideas if you take the time to like learn. Be a sponge. Just learn. You don't know it all. There's no way. As to the thousands of homes that I've been to, I still feel like I have so much more to learn. And it's a constant change. The world is rapidly changing. AI technology, we use some of it right now. We try not to heavily rely on it, but we're constantly tweaking ourselves. So yeah, that's the best way to sort of
If
um,
there's one thing that I kind of regret when I was younger is I didn't understand what sales was, and I didn't take it seriously enough. And now, I'm a firm believer that sales is probably one of the most important, but also one of the most useful skills anybody can learn, if done right and understood the essence of it, like we talked about. And if I can go back and do it all over again, maybe I don't go to university, find the biggest ticket item I can sell, and learn how to be a sponge on sales and learn how to sell. It's a skill that you don't need education for. You don't need to be crazy smart for. You just need to be able to listen, to portray your value, and just make a connection with people. Um, Speaking of connection with people, Cal, if somebody wanted to connect with you, talk a bit more about sales, shit the shit, or maybe even if they wanted to join your team here at Patch Dudes, how can they contact you?
yeah. So you can contact me directly, cal@patchdudes.com. So that's my direct email. So
Cal with
feel
a
free
K.
to yeah, Cal, so KAL at patchdudes.com. And yeah, feel free to send me an email if you've listened to this podcast and you have some itching questions or just curious in general. I've seen quite a bit, in my time, and like I said, I love hearing stories, and yeah, I don't think I've seen it all. So feel free to reach out and let me know. More than happy to help.
I love it, dude. I love it. This was awesome. I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy day. You have lots of leads to get to, people to talk to. Thank you for taking the time. Everybody, thank you for spending the hour with us. This was very informative, at least from my point of view. If you liked it, give us a thumbs up, click the subscribe button, leave a comment. Only hate comment, please. We love those. Apparently, I'm a big hit in the gay
Cheers.
community, by the way, on Instagram. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it is
there
what
you
it
go.
is. Anyway, I'm Or. This is Philip. His Cal. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao.
Have a good one. Oh, hold on.